Hello everyone, welcome back to Morgan. As you can see, it is the start of an exciting new series, a part 2 series. This was one of the OG Morgan series, wasn't it? This is movies based on TV shows, part 2. We are looking at a bunch of movies based on classic American TV shows, 60s, 70s, 80s. We're covering that era of television, and I must admit, throughout this entire series, I'm going to be more interested in watching the TV shows themselves that we are doing.
Yeah, that was a fun element for
watching
sure.
movies.
Yeah, that was a fun element, I think, that I had thought to incorporate when we did this. The first time was watching one episode of the TV show for kind of context on the characters and kind of the vibe of the show, maybe how it was filmed, maybe little kind of tropes in there. So yeah, I like getting that context that we're going to be kind of bringing into our conversation with each show. I think that's going to be fun.
It's exciting because I've never seen a single episode really of any of these shows. I may have seen, because the movies we're covering, of course, or the shows and movies we're covering. If you haven't seen our announcement videos and posts and things like that over the past week or so, today, of course, as you can tell, we're doing Starsky and Hutch. That is obviously the 70s cop show with Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul. And the Ben Stiller Owen Wilson movie. That is what we're doing today. We have the A-Team coming up. We have the Brady Bunch, 2 movies in that coming up. The Beverly Hillbillies and Get Smart. We are ending on. But today's an exciting one. I think it's a good one to start with because I wasn't quite aware, I think, before watching this episode of Starsky and Hutch that we did watch. And I think we're going to do these. We're going to talk for about 20 minutes about the actual TV episode we watched, and then like the next 40 minutes of a typically hour-long show. Compare it to the movie as a format. I wasn't quite aware, I think, before watching this episode of Starsky and Hutch that we did watch, just how, I mean, I suppose now we could call it stereotypical, but I suppose just how influential a cop show it was is the better term to use rather than stereotypical, because every single police buddy cop show trope and are incredibly familiar with, to the point where it's obviously been done to death, clearly seems to come from Starsky and Hutch.
Yes. Particularly I like how the stunts look, sliding over the hood of the car and chasing someone down a fire escape and rooftops and that kind of thing.
Leaping over railings and flipping people around over your hands, throwing them out of walls and through windows and things like that. With a kind of atmospheric theme tune behind you and great music behind you, all wearing stylish clothing, little, running around little guns and being absolutely inseparable as a partnership. I think that's the one thing I got more than anything out of this episode, because this was like a 50-minute episode. Like this would be an hour of television with ads, wouldn't it? That's the point of it. The one thing I got the most out of it, and maybe this was to do with the type of episode we watched, which was the season 1 episode, A Coffin for Starsky. Was just how much they clearly care about each other.
Yes, it was so nice.
Which was just really, really nice to see. Like they are properly inseparable, which is weird when you compare it to kind of the movie version, where we're on their kind of first mission together, aren't we?
Yes, their first meeting, they're a bit antagonistic towards each other. The characterization of them are very different. One's kind of like, skirts the law. The other
Yeah.
one is very regimented on the law, which is not kind of the characterization we got from them in the show. So we kind of maybe have to chalk that up to this is like they turned into what we see in the show. And
Yes,
how they started
exactly.
wasn't quite like that.
It just seems that they're so loose with each other, they're so easy with each other,
Yeah.
and the story of the episode is pretty,
Emotional.
tough, pretty emotional for
Yeah.
Starsky. It's called a coffin for Starsky. He
Yeah.
gets drugged and has like 24 hours to live, or
Yes, and
something
so
like
it's
that. And
on it's on him and Hutch to figure out who drugged him and how to fix
yeah,
him, before he dies. Yeah, so it's like,
it's a
a
great
big ticking clock episode.
it's a great time crunch, a great ticking clock, great action in there. I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
I could have watched many more episodes of Starsky and Hutch, I think.
Yes, when it was done, I was like, it was kind of going into another episode. And I was kind of like, I kind of want to sit and watch this, but I had a movie to go to. But I literally probably would have sat there and kind of maybe watched a couple episodes. And even how
Yeah.
the action is filmed, it looks really good. It's super intense. It looks like they're doing a lot of the things, so it doesn't look like kind of we're cutting
Oh,
away
yeah.
to stunt doubles and stuff like that. So I'd be curious to maybe look into that and see if they were allowed to do quite a bit of their own action sequences and stuff like that. I mean, of course, the fashion I think was probably the best replication from show to movie because they literally
Yes.
took specific outfits that they wore on the show and you saw them in the movie.
Yeah,
So
almost as though they were the same individual pieces of clothing.
yes, like all the things, I think they probably incorporated every single outfit you saw in the opening
Yeah.
credit in the movie. I was kind of reading a little bit about it and even, the scene in the, locker room with the towels and them with their holsters still on. That's because that was there's a poster of them, of the actual original guys in towels with their holsters on, so that was kind of a nod to that. So, yeah, there was a lot of, I think, attention paid to, if nothing else, the look of the character and kind of the action vibes of the show
Yeah.
with some satire kind of painted over top.
Yeah, which, I got that vibe
Yeah.
from the show. It's an action show, but it
Mhm.
is a kind of emotionally personal action show. You care about these two, you care about their relationship. I think the pacing of this particular episode was great. Huggy
Yeah.
Bear, obviously, very famous side character from
Yeah.
TV history. Antonio Fargas in the show is
Yeah.
incredibly decked out, but unfortunately not in this episode as much as I maybe
No,
expected him to be
no.
or wanted
Yeah,
him to be.
yeah.
Given he is a
Who plays him in the
known
movie?
character and
Yeah,
who plays him, obviously very, good blaxploitation and other such actor that
yeah,
Antonio Fargas was. He might as well be in a blaxploitation movie with the kind of
yeah,
things he's wearing in this show, and obviously that ends up being Snoop Dogg
yeah,
in the movie.
yeah,
And the sort of things Snoop Dogg's wearing and
yeah,
driving around in and things like that are
yeah.
straight out of blaxploitation.
Yes, well, that car I read was his car, was Snoop's car, because they were trying to find an exact car that was blue and all those things, and they
Excellent.
couldn't find it. And then when Snoop found this out, he's like, "Well, I have that car," and so it was his car.
The car, obviously, as well,
Yes,
the Gran Torino car, very, very famous
yes,
TV car,
yeah,
looks great. The kind of I'm gonna call it Fast and Furious car that I actually kind of like the look of. Because
yeah.
I'm not into the
The mu
sleeky,
No,
smoothie
the
kind of
kind of
cars. I like
American
box
muscle.
cars.
Yeah, the kind of American muscle kind of car. And yeah,
And I
like,
don't even
obviously
like
just
cars, but I like the look
that
of this
style,
one.
yes. Um, and just kind of the action driving with the cars as well,
Yeah.
screeching tires and the jumps and all that kind of thing,
Lots of
so
jumps, isn't there? There's lots of just jumping over things and randomly. like
Yeah.
down hills on the street
Yes.
and
So the
things like
movie
that. So
definitely
much.
has fun kind of spoofing that aspect of the show for sure.
Yes, it does. No, it works. I enjoyed that episode
Yeah.
thoroughly. Maybe, I mean, we were looking at which episode to watch specifically, and I think we
Yeah.
found a particularly well-renowned one, maybe because it does feel so personal and you actually got
Yeah.
genuinely good acting, which isn't
Yeah.
necessarily something I think you always think about 70s cop shows as
Yeah.
having particularly great acting. But these two are good actors, you know.
Yes. And they have
Paul
great
Michael Glaser would
chemistry.
go on to be a good director as well of certain
Yes.
things, wouldn't
Yes,
he?
he holds a very special place in my heart as he's the director of my all-time favorite movie, The Cutting Edge. So
Yeah,
I love that man. He also directed The Running Man. So yeah, he would
yeah.
definitely go on to be known in other film categories. So somebody
And
who,
he's still
obviously it's not a surprise that he's a good actor that he would go on to
no,
do other things in filmmaking. So yeah.
he's still with us. David Soul died last year
Oh,
only, I
that's
think.
a
We've
bummer.
seen him on Morgan Hasn't Seen in the past. He was in
Yes.
Salem's Lot, the
Yes, yes.
79, the original TV movie, or whatever
Yes,
the hell it
yes.
kind of is.
Yeah, that we did when
Mini
we did
series,
Vampire
whatever it
Mondays.
is.
Yes, and the song that Owen Wilson sings, the "Don't Give Up on Us, Baby," is a song that David Soul actually released as a single. So,
Yes, he was a
yeah.
singer as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, yes.
Um, but I like both of them. I like both of their
Yes, they're super
performances,
likable.
both of their
Yeah.
dynamics together and by themselves. You know, Starsky is Glaser and Hutch is David Soul.
Yeah.
Um, and they do. I mean, I get a little bit. I know you said before their characterization in the movie. Obviously, Starsky in the movie is Ben Stiller and
Yeah.
Hutch is Owen Wilson. And we know the typical things that Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson were doing in the early to mid 2000s, don't we?
Yes,
Owen
yes.
Wilson's very, very chill all the time. Ben Stiller's very, very uptight all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly how it is in that movie.
Yeah.
And you said before you weren't quite getting that from the show. I felt it maybe a little bit. Maybe because Starsky himself in this episode was naturally on edge because he was dying
Yeah.
actively.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
and Hutch was trying to be a bit more stoic about it, a bit more
Keeping it
reassuring
together for his
to
friend,
him,
yeah.
keeping it together. And I got that very much. But you do feel what you're supposed to feel. You do feel what the show
Yeah.
wants you to feel. I love as well. Here is a clear something that's become a stereotype that was clearly birthed in Starsky and Hutch. The mustachioed black police chief
Oh, yeah, yeah.
who is just loud and shouts all the time.
Yes, because we get that very prevalently in the movie, so I was curious to see how that was gonna be, kind of see the
He's
origin of
exactly the
it
same.
when the show came out, so, yeah, it was really fun to kinda see that be, feeling like the origin of that kind of trope.
I like watching, as is what I'm really, really going to enjoy about this whole series. I like watching shows that are clearly so influential like this because you recognize so many things from it already.
Yeah,
You just, and this is what I love about what we do on the main show because what we do we can see the foundation in older movies of more modern movies and what even movies we have now. We
mhm,
understand references more if we see the original. And I think knowing references even from other movies, basically think of something Lethal Weapon-ish even, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
um, or other things like that that have certain character references in there that are very, very subtle. They're not on the nose things. They're just clearly taken from the foundation of things like Starsky and Hutch. And then when
yeah.
you go back and watch things like Starsky and Hutch, which, forgive me if I'm not right on this, but this comes before your Tango and Cashes. And I don't even, I think that's a movie anyway. I don't even think that's a
Yeah,
TV
Tango and
show, is it?
Cash, I wanna say is the '80s, yeah.
and a lot of buddy cop things. I feel
Yeah.
like are 80s, but
Yes.
Starsky and Hutch is like 75 to
Yeah, so
79 or
79.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is foundational, and I think it's clear to see why it is such a favorite, such an easy watch as
Yeah.
well. Something you just want to put on a Sunday morning, I think, and just chill out to. You know, there's no real stakes at play, I suppose, but it doesn't make the stakes that they do conjure up kind of any less impactful in a weird way
Yeah.
because of how they're presented, because of how kind of well it's acted.
Yeah.
And that's surprising because I think at the time, TV actors and movie actors were two
We're
very
very
distinctly
separate,
different
very
things.
separate, yes. Something that surprised me was, like, since this was a more serious episode, and obviously the movie is a comedy, and it does feel a little
Yeah,
bit maybe satirical and spoofy of the show and the era and all of that
definitely
kind of thing.
parody elements, definitely.
Yes. Was the show going to have any kind of like natural comedy in it, or, have, obviously your kind of light sitcom comedy, or was it going to be all
Yeah,
kind of a hard nosed serious cop show? So to see the ending tag kind of be this funny little moment of Starsky trying to get away with a week's worth of vacation, I was pleasantly surprised and kind of happy
yeah,
to see that that's kind of the little button we end on, to show that this is a good mix of like the action, the drama, the serious kind of hard nosed cop stuff, and then kind of your light sitcom laughter. So yeah,
yeah.
I definitely wasn't expecting that, seeing Starsky strutting down the hall with his cane, spinning around, doing a little dance, and then walking in pretending to be all sick. And then Huggy Bear kind of blows his cover saying, he's booked his place for the week and all that whole kind of thing, and getting water dumped on his head. So, yeah, I thought that was kind of a really fun element and something unexpected. So, it was nice to know that this show was, in fact, like a good mix of things
Yeah.
going on for the entertainment factor of it.
And the best thing a TV show can do is you
Yeah.
watch one episode of it and it makes you want to watch other episodes of it,
Yeah.
and it certainly did that. I don't think we can, I hope the rest of these shows are equally as enjoyable for me as I
Yeah.
found that episode of Starsky and Hutch.
Yes, because
Um,
while I was always kind of familiar with all of these shows, I don't think I watched, because like I was a kid, one of those kids who did grow up watching Nick at Night and things like that. So I would
yeah,
watch older shows like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and I Love Lucy, and kind of fell in love with those shows as a little kid, just kind of watching Nick at Night, and being up late. So there were older TV shows that I did watch, but these all are shows that I was aware of but never
yeah,
watched. And so I was more kind of familiar with the films than the actual shows themselves. So it's going to be kind of a fun journey for me as well to watch these episodes of these shows for the first time. Obviously, I'm aware of clips and who's in the show and those kind of things, but I've never actually watched the shows either. So it'll be a kind of fun little part of this to get familiarized with those aspects as well.
very much so. Well, we clearly can't speak highly enough of Starsky and Hutch, the television show. I wonder
Yeah.
how the movie does fare in what it tries to do. Before we get into any of that, though, Jeannine, we do have to say a big thank you to our It's a Wonderful Podcast patrons today. We love them
Yes,
dearly. We like to say a big thank you to them every single week on the show.
we do.
We absolutely we're so grateful for their continued generosity.
Yes.
And obviously, if you would like to join them and join us on the Patreon, there are links in the description of this episode, of course, to go and do that and support us in that way. We would indeed love you forever. Let us start by saying a big thank you to Adam Witt.
And thank you, Michael Smith.
Thank you to Abby Friel.
Thank you, Ferris Muthana.
Thank you to 90s Comics Box, Jeannine's big brother Justin.
Thank you, Tina Farrow.
Thank you to Marcus Burton.
Thank you to Movie Fanobi Steve.
Thank you to Samir Tetzfai.
Thank you, Patrick Harden.
Thank you to Carla Feast.
Thank you to the great Ken Knapsack.
Thank you to Tom and Kimber of the Odd Shape channel.
Thank you, Eric Garcia.
And of course, thank you to Billy Polahan. Yes.
Yay.
Applause for the patrons. Applause for the TV show. Is the movie getting an applause today, Jeannine? You know what? Surprisingly, it actually is.
Okay.
Given that
Yes.
this is a secret frat pack movie.
It is. It is. Todd Phillips, who did Old School, who kind of brought these actors together and kind of familiarized them together on screen. Yeah.
I just thought it was Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson because I quite like both Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Out of that whole group of that particular era's comedy actors.
Yes.
Primetime comedy actors. These are the two that I get on with the most. I'm going to use the phrase "get on with" during this episode rather than like and dislike.
Yeah.
To see obviously Ben Stiller go on to be doing what he's doing now with
Yeah.
Severance, which I'm
Very
particularly
different.
obsessed with, is mad considering I'm obviously very familiar with his
the sillier comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Owen Wilson's, I think, always great. I think Owen Wilson's far easier for anybody to get on with because he's an easygoing person. He's not ever going to come across at all obnoxious, is he? Like a lot of the frat pack kind of
a little abrasive. I think that's why there's very select films in that kind of genre of film that I do enjoy. Because like I think we were kind of talking about it, and you told me you weren't like this huge Vince Vaughn fan. So for whatever reason,
Vince Vaughn fan.
Yes,
and for whatever movie, he's the villain of the movie.
Yes. So for whatever reason, I don't know. Wedding Crashers is one that like really resonated with me all that much, but I love Old School. So I don't know. I think it's because that one is helmed by another kind of very chill Wilson and Luke that that kind of worked for me. So I think he's my preferred. He's my preferred Wilson brother. But
okay.
Yes.
I mean, Luke. So, I like Luke Wilson when I've seen him in things as well. I do, but yeah, Vince Vaughn is a weird one for me. I feel like we have to go through major actor of this movie by major actor of this movie before we actually get into it.
Yeah.
Because I'm aware that Vince Vaughn's done some movies where he's been very well respected in very, acclaimed kind of roles that are a bit more serious. And I can never take myself to go and see them or to even seek them out because I just picture tall, obnoxious. He's not loud in a way, is he? He's just kind of. He gives off the comedic persona of being deeply, deeply full of himself, which I guess is why he plays a villain like this pretty well. I've got to say that he fits
does a good
the
job, I
role
think.
very well, and he does the role very well. I just don't like that kind of attitude, I guess.
Okay.
Or that kind of acting style. It works because he's successful at doing what the movie wants him to do.
Yes.
I don't think he's necessarily bad. I don't think I don't famously don't really care for Will Ferrell. He's in the movie as well. We'll get on to that.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's bad. Yeah. He's very good at what he does. I just don't like what he does.
Okay.
I think that's the same, my same feelings towards Vince Vaughn, to be honest with you, in a comedic sense. And for some reason, I can never take myself to go and watch his more serious movies because I just see the comedic, kind of hateable looking Vince Vaughn of a incredibly stuck-up persona.
Yes.
And that's not to say he's like that at all. I don't know what Vince Vaughn's like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've heard great things about him on a personal level. And
okay, that might be why then.
Yes, and things have come out now, seeing him kind of rub shoulders with a very specific political group of people. So that's kind of also rubbed people the wrong way in recent times. But generally, I do kind of, I think it depends on what it is. But I think for the most part, I've enjoyed his brand of comedy, kind of fast talking, sarcastic kind of thing. So, I've enjoyed him in movies that I enjoy. I've enjoyed him in it. He
Mm.
was not the problem in those movies. So, yeah, and I think he works as the villain here as well, kind of playing the subtle comedy against the parody aspect of what this film is kind of doing. Um,
I mean,
while
maybe that's
still
an
being
element
a
as well.
genuine villain, because he's trying to kind of be a parody of a '70s villain while also kind of being a legit '70s villain, and
Yeah.
then playing
It
into a little bit of the comedy. So I think he's juggling a couple of things, and I think he's doing it really well. Like, I'm thinking about the bat mitzvah scene when the ridiculous Dan Finnerty band is singing that song,
Yes.
and he tells the daughter, like, she's rocking into womanhood, "I know that you will," and then he, like you just pan him, and he's, like, making this face, like, "What did he just say
Who
about
hired
my
these
14"
guys?
Yes, "What did this man just say about my 13-year-old daughter?" So, like, the faces he makes and, like, those kinds of things, crack me up. So, yeah, I think he definitely has a bit of a kind of balance that he has to meet in terms of, parodying
Yeah.
a '70s kind of goofy villain while also feeling like a legit kind of villain in this movie. So, and I
Yeah,
think he
'cause
does a good job with it.
I do. I feel like he does manage to do that, and he does come across as a genuine enough villainous foil
Yeah.
for Starsky and Hutch in this movie, who themselves are. I think it's a great little story between the two of them. You get
Yeah.
their own individual time separate from each other. Hutch has this nice kind of fun relationship. I would say relationship, but kind of friendship with this kid on his street.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
that's a nice little friendly dynamic going on there,
Yeah.
because he's obviously very, very chill and laid back and strolls into work late and really gets
Yes,
under
really
Starsky's
kind of
craw.
skirts yeah, and skirts around the system in terms of, like, being this gray area, robbing bookies, but not, like, filing it in paperwork
Yeah,
or, robbing the money off of a dead body, like, he doesn't need this money, so why can't I just kinda take
exactly.
it thing? Why can't I just skirt a little bit off the top? It's not hurting anybody kind of
We
energy.
we we didn't quite see David Soul do that in
No,
the TV
that's
show.
yes, that's why it's very much, like, speaking to, okay, the characterizations aren't the same, but then you have to kind of take into account this is the beginning of these characters' journey together, so we have
Yeah,
to kind of assume that the film was trying to tell us this is like an origin story for these characters, and they ultimately grow into what we know them as on the TV show.
I I just was very, very surprised at how much I actually enjoyed the movie after I realized what it was. After I
Okay,
realized that it wasn't just a movie version or
of the show.
a slightly comedic movie version of Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah,
It is a parody of Starsky and Hutch that turns into a very, very frat pack comedy movie.
yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm enjoying this. This is odd that I'm enjoying this, but I am enjoying this. I
Yes.
can't help but enjoy this, and I think it does what we've just said Vince Vaughn does pretty well, I suppose, and balances everything surprisingly really well.
Yeah.
Makes it feel very action focused and does the action well.
Yes,
The
and the action
story
in the
of
style of the show as well.
yeah, the story of
Really homaging
obviously
that. Mhm.
starting to become partners and get on with each other while they're on this first mission, trying to take down Vince Vaughn's drug lord, and that's the whole
Yeah.
premise of the movie. You get the gradual bond between the two of them. You get the bickering between the two of them at the
Yeah.
beginning that mostly comes from Ben Stiller, because Ben Stiller's the one who's obviously going to be annoyed about everything because he's
Yes.
constantly on
The
edge.
stickler for the law, yeah.
Um, and I think this is because Ben Stiller could come across as as an obnoxious comedic performer, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But again, he can be loud, but I just don't think he's necessarily loud when he's being nervous and uptight. He's
Yeah.
just on edge. He's just shaking a lot
Yeah.
and kind of, staring daggers at people and twitching his mouth
Yeah.
and kind of just saying one word, little shut up kind of things. That
Yes.
is Ben Stiller.
Intense, yeah. Yeah.
Um, and Will Ferrell obviously is, I think, uncredited in this movie, but plays a reasonable supporting role.
Yes, this kind of informant in between character who has a interesting fetish.
I mean, he really does. But I wasn't even like, I was kind of laughing at what he was doing as well, and I think
Okay.
he doesn't come across as obnoxious in this, and I think it's because he doesn't shout in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
He's not shouting, he's not being loud, he's not being a man child, he's just being a bit weird, and
Yeah.
that's fine, that's funny, you know? It comes across as funny, and the
Yeah.
reactions of Starsky and Hutch to what he's asking them to do in particular scenes when they go and visit him in prison to try and get some information,
Yeah.
I find quite immaturely funny. I don't know if it just hit me at a right kind of frame of
Yes.
mind.
I mean, I completely forgot I owned this movie because it was like, "Oh, what's it streaming on?" Because that's just kind of the instinctual thought when you do
Yeah.
weekly movie shows, weekly podcasts, you're kinda like, "Okay, where can I watch this thing that we're covering?" And when I saw, "Oh, I have to rent it." "Oh, wait, no, I totally own this movie." So, I think that was really the brand of humor that I was into at a particular time, and so I bought, this movie back then when it came out. So, yeah, I think this comedy kind of might hit you at a certain time, and it's very specific, so it either works
It
for you or it
is.
doesn't. So that's kind of my thing, because I know you are a fan of kind of like, those 2000s comedies, American Pie and things like that. So I was very curious to see, okay, is this going to land in the vein of comedy that Morgan can kind of, despite reputations of all British people having this dry sense of humor and
I
kind of
mean, I
these
do like a
sillier
dry comedy.
things. Yes,
I
these kinds
I
of sillier
obviously
things not being your vibe, and knowing Will Ferrell being a part of this kind of group of actors, and how is that gonna
yes, he had no
play?
idea.
Yeah, yeah,
I just had genuinely no idea that there would be consistent kind of frat pack style and members to this movie. I didn't even know Todd Phillips directed the movie until
yeah,
his name appears in the opening or the close credits or whatever. I'd
yeah.
started watching the movie before I figured out Todd
Who
Phillips
directed it?
directed the movie.
Yeah,
Um, but in terms of like, your American comedy groupings of this general era, I think the American Pie lot are their own weird
but
kind of
but I
thing.
just mean in terms of kind of like extreme comedy of a very specific era. Not
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to get at. I'm almost trying to compare like groups of actors, I mean groups of
Yeah.
performers.
Yes, yes.
The like those guys, the American Pie-esque
Yeah.
guys, I don't mind again, just because I think that is more completely chaotic, raunchy stuff.
Yeah.
The Frat Pack is more loud silliness.
Yeah.
And then you move a little bit on to the what I call the Seth Rogen bunch, the stoner bunch.
Yes, yeah.
The your Jonah Hills, your Jason Segel,
Yeah.
even Franco before he got weird.
Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah.
era. I really do like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Maybe because it feels it's still silly, but it's a bit
But it's like an
slower. I
evolved,
guess it's more
yes. It's like a
slow.
combination of the 2, I probably, of like
Yeah,
the very early 2000s American Pie, like late 90s comedy, and like the kind of sillier, frat pack
yeah.
comedy. Yeah.
But I suppose where would Steve Carell land? He would land in Frat Pack, wouldn't he? Really?
Yeah, I
But he's
mean,
almost like not. He's almost in the middle. He's his own thing.
well, yeah, because I
Almost.
mean, despite it being not Todd Phillips, the Anchorman movies also kind of, I think people put those in that frat pack
Yes.
bucket as well, because it's all those kinds of actors. I mean, even Ben
Yeah.
Stiller and those kind of actors make cameos in the Anchorman movie. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Zoolander, I would put in there, even though that's late
yeah, because
90s.
we're still getting Owen and
And Ben
Farrell and
Stiller and
Ben Stiller.
Ferrell and
Yeah.
I got literally no interest in ever watching Zoolander, by the way. So that's just
So
never
you've
going to be a
never seen
thing.
Zoolander?
Never seen Zoolander. Don't
Oh.
really don't want to. Would find it would make me not like Ben Stiller, I feel, from what I've seen of it.
I mean, it's not one I revisit, but it's not bad. Like, I would have to watch it again because I literally have not seen it in ages to see if it still works for me. Um, I just thought of another movie that would fit in this, and then it completely left my brain. But
I
yeah,
don't know where'd you put 40-Year-Old Virgin? That's kind of what I'm thinking of with that because it's it's a
yeah,
tweener. It's because it's
yes,
Seth Rogen's in the movie,
mm-hmm,
yet Paul Rudd, Anchorman, is in the
yeah,
movie.
mm-hmm, yeah,
Steve Carell's obviously leading the movie.
yeah,
Where does Steve Carell fall? Because he's in Anchorman and a bit
yeah.
of Bruce Almighty,
Ye-
and then where does Jim Carrey form in the whole thing?
yes, because like the
Because
Judd
he goes
Apatow, I think the
stupid.
Judd Apatow kind of Todd Phillips, I think they're all kind of, the same little bit of energy.
Vaguely similar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then Apatow would become the stoner stuff, the Seth Rogen
yeah, and
would
then
be
morph
work with
into that.
Apatow.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
would be weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird. The
And
comedic, the
McKay, who did Adam McKay? He
McKay.
did Anchorman. I think he did the Anchorman movie.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
all of
Adam
them
McKay
are
did
kind of
Anchorman.
this little hybrid situation. Yeah.
They are.
Of
There's
comedy.
just
It was a very specific, just general era. Oh, Dodgeball, that's the movie I was thinking of that also kind of because it's
Dodgeball.
Vaughn and Stiller in there as well. So,
See, I
yeah.
feel like did
Where
we
does that
do
sit?
Dodgeball for a show? Did we do
I wanna
Dodgeball
say
for an
we did it
organising
for
series?
competition. We did a series on competition movies, and Dodgeball was in
And
there.
Vince Vaughn obviously leads that movie, and
Yes, and
I
Ben
don't
Stiller's the
remember.
antagonist.
He is, yeah, and I don't remember disliking Dodgeball.
No, it's a really funny movie.
It's a very stupid movie, and I
Jason Bateman
remember
as well in
actually
there.
yes, and Jason Bateman's in this
Yes,
movie. Where
yes.
does Jason Bateman fall? Because he's in between all of them as well.
Yeah.
It's the landscape of major
Of this era of
comedy
comedy.
movies
Yeah.
in Hollywood in the 2000s is an interesting thing to get into.
Yeah.
And what is defined as what particular style and what
Style.
particular era.
Yes.
So where does
What
Starsky and
particular
Hutch land?
combination of actors. Yeah.
Yeah. So where does Starsky and Hutch land? It's kind of tough to say.
Yeah.
To have all that tangent just to say we're not really sure where Starsky and Hutch land.
I mean, I think it plays more into obviously Todd Phillips' vibe of comedy because, like, I was getting a lot of notes of the humor that he had in Old School, which I think is probably my favorite
Okay.
of this
Never seen Old
era.
School, don't want to see Old School. Was
You
half expecting John C. Reilly to show up as well in Starsky and Hutch at some point,
yes,
but
because
he
of the
doesn't
the stepbrother situation as well.
because of the Step Brothers situation, which is also very much that style.
Yes. Which I believe is that Adam McKay, I think.
That's McKay. I'm sure that's McKay.
Yeah. Yes. But no, I do really love Old School. I think, yeah, I think other elements you would find funny because it very much feels like what's happening in this film. We even get that Dan Finnerty band singing ridiculous like
Okay.
versions of the songs at the wedding at a wedding that's in the movie. Um, and then, there's a point where Will Ferrell does turn into the thing that you hate of him. So,
I
um,
know that. I know that about Old School. I know
and we
that's
get
what happened.
Snoop Dogg as well in Old School. So,
Why is Snoop Dogg always in these things? Do we like Snoop Dogg as
I think he's
in this?
great. And I did read that, like, the scene where Vince Vaughn slaps him was not a rehearsed thing, and Snoop just kinda went along with it, and then after the fact, he was like,
Wow,
"What the fuck is
I bet he
that?" You know?
was.
Yes. So, yeah, I think Snoop was great as Huggy Bear because I don't know that he was doing a ton of acting at that point, so,
No,
um
I don't think so. He's flamboyant enough from what we saw of Huggy Bear
yes, the
in the
fashions,
show.
the cool guy, the kind of neighborhood enforcer. I love his little opening scene. "Be gone, little Indian," like, the little Indian man who's asking for his help. Um, So he plays that pillar of the community really well. He has his kind of enforcers, like one is kind of like a
Yeah,
Black Panther and
yeah,
that kind of thing. And that whole kind of scene was a really good comedic scene of him really spouting, his enforcers spouting off all of this like encyclopedic knowledge of things and random times. And his whole introduction, I think, was really great. And I think he did a good job as well. I really bought him as this kind of neighborhood enforcer, informant, who kind of governs himself kind of vibe, and still the cool, fashionable. He had his nice little perm, like he was looking good. So
yeah.
yeah, I really enjoyed him as the Huggy Bear character. So that's why I wish we would have picked an episode that maybe saw more of that version in the TV show to see, how really more of how they compared. But
Yeah, I suppose I'm thinking more along the lines of what else I know Antonio Fargas from, and he's always rather flamboyant
yeah,
in
I
what
mean,
he's doing. So
yeah,
it fits well with what Snoop's doing in this movie. It comes across in that same way, that same witty way, that
yeah,
same incredibly overconfident kind of way, yet endearing about it. And
yeah,
he's a much bigger part of this movie than he is that episode of the show, of
yeah,
course, and helps really well, acts as that supporting role to Starsky and Hutch really
yeah,
well. I enjoy it. I enjoy him as Huggy Bear, definitely. I enjoy Fred Williamson as the chief, the police
yeah.
chief.
He's
He
great.
plays exactly the same guy as I don't know the man's name from the show,
Oh, from
but
the
it
show.
is exactly the same, and I love it. He looks exactly the same as well,
Yeah.
down to the exact shape of his mustache. It's
Yes, and
exactly
he's
the same.
and he's giving, like, great energy. He feels like he's from the '70s. Like, I felt like, I think, when you are very era specific with a movie you're doing, they kind of try to just put you there with excessive needle drops and, the kind of over the top costuming. But because we had that really great reference point of the show, the
Yeah.
movie's able to does that. Like I said earlier, the movie, I think, captures that brilliantly, and it feels like we're from the '70s, even though Owen Wilson is kind of that face that we talk about that doesn't feel like somebody from the '70s.
I
It's
would agree with you. I think Stiller looks way more like he's
yeah.
from the 70s.
Yes, and so but everything else working so well to portray that, I think the needle drops, Huggy Bear, the costuming, the '70s music, and the kind of how it even looked, like the film grain of it, like, felt
Yeah,
very much, the establishing shots and the quick zooms and those kinds of things.
yeah.
They tried to make it feel like essence of, like, '70s TV. So the fact that they incorporated all of these aspects, it really sold me on the time period for sure. So
It does work. It's clearly a movie made with affection for the show.
yes, and yes, Fred Williamson definitely. That was my point. Fred Williamson definitely felt like he was right out of the '70s for me.
I mean, his acting career was the 70s, though, wasn't
Yeah.
it, really? He
Yes.
again, is another blaxploitation kind of icon, as
Yes.
well as
Bernie
yeah,
Hamilton, they say, is
Bernie
the
Hamilton.
yeah,
Fair enough. Yes, he Bernie Hamilton was good in the role of, is it Dobie, Captain
Dobie.
Dobie,
Yeah, yeah.
the police chief. But yeah, it really is a movie made with such affection for the TV show, and it
Yeah.
comes off in every single way. Let's focus a little bit more on the costuming again, because I'm all about it. The amount of turtlenecks on show,
Yes.
particularly obviously in the episode of the show itself.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I'm just all about Hutch's whole turtleneck
Turtlenecks. Yes, you are
situation.
very much a turtlenecks and a big billowy cardigan kind of person. So
Yes.
those looks were speaking to
Leather
you.
jacket, no.
No, no,
I'm not
not
into
not
the leather
you.
jacket.
But the
But
turtlenecks and the billowy cardigans, particularly that
yes,
very
big
epic
trousers.
Starsky, uh, printed white cardigan with the big collar and the
Yeah.
tie belt, like, that was
Oh,
so I was like, "Morgan's gonna love this."
give me a collared piece of knitwear with pockets and a tie, a waist tie on it. My God, it's perfect. And he's just running around in that opening, doing his police duties
Yes, and, like, we see that,
in
I
his
think, in the scene.
cardigan.
Yes, when they get shot at, and he's wearing the beanie, um, and so that's something I think we see in the opening, him in that sweater, in a beanie, those kinds of looks. So I love that we're incorporating a ton of looks that we see straight from the show down to their little towels, I think is
Yeah,
great.
it, it is. It's one of my favorite things I think about the movie is that it just has so many outfits that are so
Yes.
70s and
Yes.
so much that came directly from the TV show
Yeah.
within it, to the point where it even has Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul in it at the very end. In
Yes!
this weird, this is where it definitely becomes a spoof movie.
Yeah.
In this weird way where all four of them are now playing Starsky and Hutch in
Yes,
this
they're, like,
particular.
literally wearing the same outfits because, yeah, there's a whole, obviously, extreme, uh, car jump that happens. They try to jump the car onto, Vince Vaughn's yacht to catch him, but he overshoots and jumps the car into the ocean, and so, Huggy Bear's like, "Oh, I found your car, like, I bought it for you from this guy," and the guy he buys it from is the original Paul Michael Glaser Starsky, and they're literally dressed in the
Yes.
exact same down to the choker necklace, they're wearing exactly the same. Um, and that's the guys that are selling them the cars. So yeah, it was a fun little kind of moment to see them together, and I liked. And I think they also tried to get a cameo from the Huggy Bear actor, but the IMDb doesn't really explain. They just like said, well, they reached out to him, but we're not sure why it didn't happen, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but
I mean, that'd have been nice as well. I don't know why that wouldn't have necessarily been
yeah,
able to happen. Maybe there's more to that. Maybe there's not. Maybe there's nothing to it
yeah,
at all. But I suppose I like another element to the movie that I did like as well, that we didn't get enough time in the show to see, is just how incredibly fond of the car, because it's such a major part, just how
yeah,
incredibly fond of the car Starsky is, and the
yeah.
pressure he feels while driving the car, yet the freedom he feels while driving the car.
Yes, when, he first kind of introduces the car to Hutch, and he kind of comes blazing in this cool way,
Yes.
and, like, that also, bumps him up some cool points for Hutch, which he says, and then he talks about, his mom thinking about it was too sick, telling him it was too much car for him. When the
And
car's
it
getting
is.
shot up, he's getting really disappointed. I think we do get a little sense of that in the show when, there's Starsky and Hutch are trying to solve who drugged him. Starsky's getting sicker by the minute, but he's
Yeah.
still like, "No, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be on this investigation." And Hutch is like, "Let me drive," and he's like, "No, I'm already dying. I'm not gonna let you drive my car too," kind of thing.
Like, no, you are never driving my
No
car.
matter, I may be dying, but you're still not driving my car. So, we got a little hint of the importance of his car, in the show. So I
We
like that they
did, but
kind of
that was
took it
it. That was
to
all we got.
yes. So I like, for an episode of TV. So I'm sure there maybe were more things peppered down the line that showed like the importance of this car. There are also things that I'm curious to know if they were literally just fabrications to add to the comedy of the movie, that like Starsky's trying to live up to this legend of his mother, not like his father or
Yeah.
something. Like, was that just kind of like a comedic thing for the movie that like, um,
I feel like
he's
given
constantly getting compared to his mom. Um,
given that the Frat Pack aren't necessarily known for their great feminist stance, I would imagine it's just a cheap joke.
Yes, so that's why I was like, was that something prevalent in the show? Or yeah, are they literally just like, "Oh, this man's trying to live up to a woman. Oh, so funny."
I think
Y
that's just exactly
yeah,
what's going on, because
um,
look how the movie treats its women.
yes.
The only women you get in the movie are Carm and Electra and
Yeah,
Amy
Amy
Smart,
Smart,
who are
um,
the sorry, Juliette Lewis is in the movie as well. She's
like his mistress.
Vince Vaughn's mistress.
Yes, and I believe his wife is a model. I think her name's Molly Sims. She was like a MTV kind of like commentator and model. I
But
think, and yes, they're all kind of just very sexualized and pretty and
outrageously sexualized, outrageously idiotic to the point of just silliness.
yes, we get a three-way happen with two of the women, like, yeah,
And
it's just
Owen Wilson, because
yes, and then
that's what
they
would
kiss
happen.
each other and this whole kind of thing. So yes, I always kind of took it as that it wasn't like a thing from the show that like he's trying to live up to this legacy of his mother who was this great cop, and so oh my gosh, this man has to try to live up to a woman. Oh,
I mean, you know
I
what? If
yeah,
it is, then I credit the show more than I
yes,
credit the movie, you know?
exactly, for doing something because they would have been taking that element seriously. Um, Another thing that I was curious is the disguise thing because it's like,
Y
uh, Ben
right?
Stiller's version of Starsky, he's like, "Oh, so who's your wig guy?" "Yeah, I use disguises for my undercover work all the time." And we see them try to kind of go undercover, and Hutch is very out of his element that he's just kind of
Yes.
copying whatever Starsky's doing. So I'm curious
And
to see if a disguise kind of thing was an element in the TV show.
yeah, I would be. I think Ben Stiller's good at that sort of stuff though as well,
Yeah, his
pretending to be somebody
do it
else,
thing.
doing some sort of stupid
Yeah,
voice,
yeah.
and a bit of physical comedy, because he is a very
Mhm.
physical
Yeah, he's
comedic
great at that.
actor,
Yeah.
Stiller. And he does do it really well in this movie, and I think particularly when it's the same sequence of events that leads to Owen Wilson's ridiculously over-sexualized three-way. But
Yeah.
Starsky has accidentally taken an outrageous amount of
Amount of
cocaine in
cocaine.
coffee.
Yes. So it's funny, the episode we watched is when Starsky gets drugged, and so this
Yeah,
and then the film, we get the scene where Starsky is in fact on drugs, but by accident. He thinks it's sugar because the whole drug that our villains are peddling is this new version of cocaine that cannot be detected, and it's a little
yes,
bit sweet. So when you kind of look into it, you think it's just regular, powdered sugar, but
sweetener.
yes, but it's actually cocaine. So they go and get it analyzed, and the analysts say, "Oh no, it's just sugar." So they take the sample home, and he decides to just use it in his coffee because the analysts have said, "Oh no, this isn't really
Oh, yeah, it's
cocaine,"
fine.
but it actually. So he ends up pouring a bunch of it in his coffee when they're courting the ladies that they have met
Yes.
when they were kind of looking for a lead. When they were following a lead, they met these two cheerleader girls played by Smart and Carmen Electra.
'Cause that's
And
what you do, obviously, you hook up with your informants.
yeah, so obviously, was that a thing? Were they kind of ladies' men in the show as well? Is something I
Yeah,
would
but I
be
mean,
interested to
maybe
see.
that yeah,
Not to maybe this
maybe.
degree of what the movie does, but were they kind of slick like that? Because I like that there's this that we meet Starsky being very regimented, and then we see these kind of slick
Very.
moves that he does that impress Hutch when he brings out the car and when he's like flirting with the ladies, and Hutch is like, I didn't realize you had like moves like that. So I like that they use those moments to kind of loosen up Starsky a little bit and kind of make you realize he's not as uptight as we think he is. So I'm
Yeah,
curious to know if like they were kind of ladies men kind of guys and had those moments in the show as well. But yeah, he does end up drugging himself and gets really hyper, and they go to a club, and he he loses the dance competition to the point where he's like threatening the guy with a gun and freaking out. We're getting Patton Oswalt, which I think is also he's kind of in the mix of this comedic
yes,
group. So um,
it's Yeah, this dance battle thing, I actually quite like
Yeah.
because it's so disco. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And like Disco Stew or whatever his name was, who is the club's regular disco champion,
Yes, yeah.
isn't as good as Ben Stiller, isn't as good as
No, and he
Starsky.
obviously Starsky obviously got more applause, but obviously it's the rigged system for the regular guy, and
So
so he gets
Starsky pulls his gun out
loses it,
and
loses
because
it.
he's smacked off his face.
Yes, and
And
Hutch has to take him down, and he's, like, literally carrying him and laying him down on his waterbed and having to kind of soothe him. So then now he's alone. Hutch is alone with the two ladies, and
exactly.
those things ensue. But Amy Smart has to make it clear, I do like your friend, but this is just whatever because it's the
Yeah, but
70s. And
this is just fine. We can do this, but just let Starsky know that
I do
I
actually
really do
like him.
like him. Nonsense, but okay. Um, the movie is full of nonsense. The movie
Yeah,
is surprisingly something I just seem to get on well with.
yeah.
Um, Elements of it, yes, felt very Frat Pack, but I think it towed the line for my own personal
Yeah,
taste really well and never crossed it.
yeah.
Um, had the spoofy elements, yet had the clear love for the show in it.
Yes.
Was a perfectly competent enough action story as well.
Yeah, like it took I think it took the crime solving elements pretty seriously in terms of crafting
Yeah,
that narrative and them really investigating this case and
like there
following
was a
leads.
full
And yeah,
investigation.
there was a full procedural investigation, so they took those aspects really seriously. Even when they had their falling out and the little kid on Hutch's
Yeah,
street gets, injured by a car bomb that was for Hutch. He's in the hospital. Starsky goes to visit him, and they have this really kind of emotional moment
yeah,
because after they kind of have this big screw up, um, the chief kind of lets them know that, hey, Starsky, he tried to ask for a new partner and a transfer 2 weeks ago. And that causes this like actual kind of serious emotional feeling falling out because we've seen them kind of come together in those 2
yeah.
weeks. So, yeah, we get kind of a little bit of emotional beats with those scenes and things like that. So, they do toe the line really well in terms of balancing an actual kind of emotional friendship growing between these characters, the kind of satirical spoofy comedy. That's the brand of Todd Phillips kind of films and these actors, while also really having fun homages to the style of the show and the action in the show as well. So I think they balance the elements really well. And once you kind of get into knowing what it's trying to do, you're fully on board.
Yeah, I actually think you are. I know you were probably a little bit tentative with
Yeah.
me starting this series with
Yes, because
Starsky and
all of these
Hutch.
movies are wholly ridiculous, and, like, these are movies I grew up watching in the '90s and, 2000s, so I'm far more familiar with them and, I think at the time really enjoyed that humor, but going back to them and introducing them to you,
They've not
sat
aged
back
well.
I'm sat back like,
I
"This."
think you need to have seen at least a couple of these style of comedy movies
Yeah,
when at the time they were out to be able to go back and rewatch them, because if you watch them
yeah,
for the pure first time, you don't even understand the comedy, or you don't even
yeah,
understand what comedy style you're in for,
yeah,
and you go and watch them now, they are going to
they're not
feel
gonna play.
so aged,
Yeah,
so dated in terms
yeah.
of the real. I mean, what do you refer to it as? Offensiveness is too much of a broad term
Yeah,
for in this way. I just think the easiest way, the most simple way, excuse me, the most simple way of putting it is the Frat Pack comedy hasn't aged well.
okay, but yeah.
Yet it works for
Yeah,
those who saw it at the time.
yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that does make sense. I don't know if that does make
I mean, yeah, if you were already a fan of this type of comedy, I think it will still work for you watching it later. But if it's something that's new to you, it might be hard to introduce somebody to this style of comedy now. Is
Yeah,
that
see,
kind of what you
I suppose I'm not even trying to say if you were a fan of it, just if you were aware of what it was.
Okay, if you understand what it's trying to
If you
do.
actually understand what it was, because I'm not saying I'm a fan. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of it.
Yes,
Yet I was
but you
there in the mid
understand,
2000s
yes, and you
seeing
understand,
these things.
yes, you understand that style of comedy, this group of actors, what they were kind of known
Yeah,
for. You
yeah,
understand the brand. So
yeah,
you can go into it and kind of say, okay, I get what they're trying to do. I'm not lost here. This is not a brand of comedy that feels foreign to me. While it's not one that I gravitate towards, I get what they're trying to do.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But surprisingly, it did work. And I
Yay.
think,
Okay.
to be honest, it will work better than what we're getting next week, because I'm not hearing good things about the
I
2018 movie, Jeannine.
I like silly action movies. Bradley Cooper is incredibly hot. So that's Sharlto Copley. That was like he's really funny in the film. I think I bought this film. This was like probably one of the first films I bought on like when you could buy Apple movies.
Really?
Yes. So I own this
Wow.
movie on Apple streaming service. I bought from the Apple store like when I years ago.
I just want to
Um
see Mr. T in the show. That's all I'm here for.
Yes. So I haven't watched this film in ages. I do remember really liking it. I own it. And I always just had fun with it as a silly action movie. And I
Okay.
think, from what I know of the show, I feel like the characterizations are pretty good counterpoints to the show. But I
Okay.
only kind of seen bits and pieces of the show, so I'd have to refresh, which we are going to do. So I'm excited. Let's
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be
yes.
interesting. I think the series has gotten off to a pretty good start with
Yes.
Starsky and Hutch in both show and movie form, admittedly.
Yes.
And I like that it has done that. Of course, we will be back next week with our discussion, our look at the A-Team in show form. We don't know what episode of the A-Team we're going to
No,
watch
I
yet.
was
Haven't
looking
really
up a few,
decided.
so yes, I was looking up a few, so, I'm kind of pulling up what are the best episodes of this show,
Yeah,
so we're not getting kind of something goofy that doesn't speak to, the general consensus of the show. So, yeah, we'll find something good to watch, I'm sure.
we'll be spending the entire time singing the theme tune.
Yeah.
Which that's what I plan on doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, great theme tune that it is.
Yes, very good.
I'm envisioning the theme tune is better than the entire movie. I'm just it's just my prejudgment.
Okay, fair.
Um,
I mean, I don't go into everything thinking I'm picking this movie because Morgan's gonna like it. I'm picking it because Morgan hasn't seen it, and I think it'll breed an interesting discussion. So
I hope it does
this
breed an
will
interesting
be
discussion.
this will be one of those films I'm feeling like if that's what you're feeling already going into it. But I would say I don't think it's as bad as you think it's gonna be, but I
Okay.
don't think you will come out of it like that was better. That's like way better than I thought. I don't think you're gonna think it's better than you think it's gonna be, but I don't think you're gonna think it's as bad as you think it's gonna be, if
So
that makes
what
sense.
what what I'm getting from what you've just said is I'm not gonna have the same reaction I've had this week with Starsky and Hutch.
No, I don't think you'll love it as much as this, but I don't think it's as bad as you think it's gonna be.
Okay, well, I certainly hope it does breed a good discussion. I'm sure it will. Today's episode certainly has done that. Of course, this is not the only show we have on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed. The main show is there, celebrating old movies every Friday. We are about to start a series on the States. We are looking
Ooh.
at 4 movies that simply have a US state in the title.
Yes,
That's the only through line for these movies.
essentially, yeah.
Um, it's going to be an interesting series, though, because we're getting some interesting little bits of variety in there. Even though technically we've got 3 westerns, we've got interesting variety.
Yes.
Exciting times on It's a Wonderful Podcast. Of course, do subscribe to this podcast feed on all major platforms, wherever you are listening. Leave your ratings, leave your reviews, share it around, all that fun stuff. Subscribe and ding your notification bell on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, of course, as well, for all the other fun things we have there. And Morgan Hasn't Seen TV is also over there as well. So if you like TV and you like Morgan Hasn't Seen and you like this series because this is a little bit of Morgan Hasn't Seen TV as well, then you're going to like long format Morgan Hasn't Seen TV. Of course, discovering Dawson's Creek and talking Ted Lasso over there at the moment, alternating Mondays. The Patreon we spoke about before, but of course you can also find us on all the social medias, on the app formerly known as Twitter at It's a Wonderful One, on Blue Sky at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the Purple Dome with a 3 instead of the E in there, because, Jeannine,
3 is a magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at the Purple Dome. All your Starskys aware. I don't really know where I was going with that.
You can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search G9 Design on tpublic.com. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Well, of course, there is indeed only one thing left to do, Jeannine. And no, I'm not going to be racially insensitive and make you do an impression of one of the black characters from Starsky and Hutch. You can, because I think your Snoop Dogg impression would actually be quite good. I'm instead going to allow you to do a very respectful impression of your finest director of all time, Paul Michael Glaser.
What?
As Starsky, specifically. And it must be spot on, otherwise it's not going to be good.
I was expecting to get the do it guy. I could do that impression.
Fair enough. Okay. I just thought you could be nice to you like Paul Michael Glaser.
I love him, I do, but I don't think he has a very distinctive thing to impress upon.
And that's why it's difficult.
Yes. Why do you like to torture me? You just love to mess with me, don't you?
Well, you can do the do it guy if you want that.
Yes, I could probably do a better job at that.
3, 2, 1, do it.
Bye.